says, is the one world government spoken of in Scripture? What significance does the one world government have in end times prophecy?
Well, I'll tell you what my feel about a one world government. If there is a one world government, and many of the satanic cults have talked about this, one world is a whole lot easier to control by Satan than 200 nations, you know. If we have 50 states, it's more difficult to control than if there's one. So the idea of bringing all the world together with one ruler has been the dream of the occult for years. Now, what about that in Scripture? The Bible talks about an antichrist, talks about a world system, talks about a time you won't be able to buy or sell except with the, quote, mark of the beast. So the answer is the Bible does talk about it. Read Revelation. All right.
But I think one thing that's very important to me in all of this to see is when people take this mark of the beast to be able to buy or sell, it's going to be really taking his name upon them. So it's really going to be a mark of their allegiance to him. And I think in that coming tribulation, unlike any other time, people are going to have a clear-cut choice. Are they going to take Christ, or are they going to follow the Antichrist? And that's what's coming in this world. It's a sobering thing to think about.
Is this intriguing or what?
I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us we can bring about that realization. In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war? I think maybe I'd answer it this way. I keep, in my frustration sometimes, you know, actually, if you count some of the things going on in smaller countries and all, there have been about 114 wars since World War II. But I've often wondered, what if all of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by a power from outer space, from another planet? Wouldn't we all of a sudden find that we didn't have any differences between us at all? We were all human beings, citizens of the world, and wouldn't we come together to fight that particular threat?
All of us, whether rich or poor, powerful or powerless, will suffer the effects of climate change and ecosystem destruction. We are faced with, I believe, is the greatest moral crisis of our time.
the years, the scientists of the world have freely exchanged their knowledge. This worldwide search for truth has led to the greatest of all discoveries, atomic energy. No one scientist or nation is responsible. The periodic law of the elements was discovered by Mendeleev, a Russian. The electron by Thomson, an Englishman. The theory of relativity by Einstein, a German. The atomic nucleus by Rutherford, a New Zealander. Atomic structure by the Dane, Niels Bohr. The positron by Anderson of the United States. There is no secret. When a neutron strikes, the atom is split. Released neutrons split other atoms. The result is atomic energy. Shall the people of the world use this energy for the destruction or the betterment of mankind? The United States used this power to destroy Hiroshima. Deadly radioactive rays, and in a matter of seconds, downtown New York would be a mass of ruins. Throughout the entire lower end of Manhattan, most people would be dead. All buildings from Washington Square to the Battery would be destroyed. Even the most ruthless aggressors of the past had no such weapon. A soldier of Alexander with one spear killed one. Napoleon's cannon in one firing killed 12. The Kaiser's Big Bertha killed 88. Hitler's V2 168. Japan's war against the United States ended after a B-29 dropped one atomic bomb that killed close to 100,000. The deadly power can be exerted at great distances. The first atomic bomb was dropped on a round trip of 3,000 miles on August 1945. On November 20th of that year, the effective range was extended to 8,000 miles. The United States had demonstrated that an atomic bomb could be launched to reach any country in the world. A grim reminder to all nations that had the bomb and this plane been in possession of the Axis powers, they could have conquered the world. There would have been no defense against this weapon. A single plane would have broken through to destroy the heart of London. V2s with atomic warheads could have destroyed England. At the moment of surrender, Hitler had in the blueprint stage transoceanic rockets, which could have destroyed our cities. U-boats could have surfaced off our shores and launched atomic rockets against vital targets. The fifth column would have had an even more insidious means of destruction. Parts of bombs could have been smuggled in, and under the cloak of darkness, infernal machines could have been assembled by saboteurs. It is therefore an imperative necessity that all the nations of the world unite to avert catastrophe. The United Nations must establish a worldwide control of atomic energy and of other weapons of mass destruction. Representatives of the peoples of the world must together make laws which will abolish war, laws which will hold the individual in all lands responsible for crime against world peace. Only through proper control of atomic energy can we answer the question how this great force may be used for the benefit of mankind. Atomic energy, freed from the menace of war, can be for all people in all nations the great fusing force of one world. It is life or death.
It is life or death.
Nothing less than a new world order. This is the pledge of the world's most powerful leaders, representing 90% of the global economy. Thursday's G20 summit, they say, has changed the rules of the game.
Today, the largest countries of the world have agreed a global plan for recovery and reform. This involves the biggest interest rate cuts in history, the biggest fiscal stimulus we have ever seen, the biggest increase in resources in the history of our international institutions.
A total of $5 trillion for the global economy by the end of next year, including $1 trillion for the International Monetary Fund. Staggering figures that the 20 countries, along with international institutions, agreed upon to combat the crisis. The G20 has laid out other measures, too, to firm up a financial system many say enabled the worst excesses of the past.
We will implement new rules on pay and bonuses at a global level that reflect actual performance with no more rewards for failure.
The G20 leaders arrived in London divided, with France and Germany holding out for tougher controls on tax havens notably. But the results have won praise from all sides.
But the results have won praise from all sides. From all sides.
What does it mean, globalization 4.0?
What does it mean, globalization 4.0?
Definitively, it has to be more sustainable. We cannot continue to destroy our environment. It has to be more inclusive. Those people who have lost the hope for a better future, they have to be given a new vision. They don't want to wake up with nightmares. They want to wake up with dreams. We need a more multi-stakeholder globalization, which means a globalization not led just by governments, but where solutions are elaborated jointly by all stakeholders of society. I don't know how it will play out in November, but what we know is that we will end up with many more unemployed, and particularly also people in the grey economy which are not counted for, who lose their jobs. So we will see definitively a lot of anger already now, but probably increase by the end of the year, because this crisis will be with us until we really have found a remedy. So we have to prepare for a more angry world.
We have to prepare for a more angry world.
We all want to return to the way things were before COVID-19. But there's one area where I hope we never go back: our complacency about pandemics. We can get ahead of infectious disease outbreaks. By the next pandemic, I believe we can have what I call mega testing diagnostic platforms. They can be deployed quickly, cost very little, and test 20% of the entire population every week. We also want to get treatments out far faster next time. One of the most promising is monoclonal antibodies. These manufactured antibodies grab onto the virus and disable it, just like your immune system. And can reduce death rates by as much as 80%. I also think that we'll develop new vaccines quickly, in large part due to this new mRNA platform. mRNA will become faster to develop, easier to store, and lower cost. That's a huge breakthrough. To stop future pandemics quickly, we need to be able to spot disease outbreaks as soon as they happen anywhere in the world. And that requires a global alert system. If there turns out to be some new infectious pathogen, then we need a group of infectious disease responders to spring into action. Think of these as like pandemic firefighters. They're going to use their logistics, use their ability to build up capacity quickly. They're going to go wherever that problem is. Stopping the next pandemic will require a big investment, but I think of this as the best insurance policy the world could buy. You can read more about this in our annual letter.
Coronavirus continue to rise.
To negatively impact business for the next 10 years.
Bushfires in Australia.
The nation erupted into scenes of chaos.
Or to continue with remote learning.
The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted life.
This virus wants to infect everybody on the planet.
This virus wants to infect everybody on the planet.
It's an economic crisis, a social crisis, and in many countries, a political crisis.
Three things we need to solve in that moving forward: poverty, inequity, and climate change.
First wave of victims for COVID were human beings.
The world of the future has to be about loving each other.